Shalom, shalom, shalom. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, August the 21st, 2024, and it is a great day to be alive and well. My name is Sharon, and I am the host, and Sandra Lee is my co host of Faith Walk, the intersection of life and faith. We have some wonderful guests joining us this evening because we are in the Black Man series, and tonight's topic is Black Men and the Church. Black men and the church. And we have two pastors on tonight who are Black men, Pastor Stacey Hayes and Pastor Kenny White. So before we get started, like we always do, subscribe to the YouTube channel if that's how you're watching, like the Facebook page if that's how you're watching, and share the video. Don't keep all this great and wonderful information to yourself, and like the video as well. It helps the algorithm and for our shows to get in front of more eyeballs. That helps us to expand the show. So we thank you for that. And just to let you know up front, which seems like every Wednesday I'm saying this, but the devil is defeated. We had technical difficulties, which is why we logged on, about 4 minutes late. So, and we're still having technical difficulties. So when Sandra Lee comes on, we'll just see what happens. And it's not her, because I had difficulties too, where I couldn't send her the link the right way. So we'll see what happens. This is live, so we can't do it like an edited version. When you're live, is you get what's happening in real time. And you know what? We like it that way because it's authentic. So you get to see the snafus, you get to see all the stuff that, people probably really don't want you to see, right? But you're going to get it here on our channel. So we have some people who are already logged on. Gwen, she's the first one. Hey, Gwen, how are you? And Adrian, thank you for watching. Honey Bunches, you are third today, but you're always number one in our hearts now. Inga, hi, Inga, how are you? Sharon, nice to see you on, Sharon. And Netta, hi, Netta, how are you? Thank you for watching. Aisha, hey, Aisha, how are you doing this evening? So, I'm going to bring up Sandra Lee right now and see what happens. We don't know what's going to happen. But we're just going to say, Holy Spirit, have your way. The devil is defeated, and this program shall go off without a hitch. All right, here comes Sandra Lee. We hope.
Hey.
Hey, Sandra, how are you?
Hey, listen, I'm doing what I do. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think I hear a little feedback.
Okay.
But it's not too bad.
Okay. So
can you hear me well?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you a lot better. It's not really, really loud, but it's enough for me to make out what you're saying. So we're good. We're good.
Okay.
We're determined.
We are. And
yes.
I don't even hear feedback anymore. So yay!
Yay! Yes. And I am so excited tonight. We have two awesome speakers on tonight. So it is going to be so good. It's going to be so good. I can't wait.
It is. And, Pastor Kenny has not joined us yet, so I'm not sure if he's having technical difficulties as well. But when he does come on, he will join the show. But right now, without further ado, we're going to bring up the illustrious, the wonderful, the wise pastor that we all know.
Yes.
And if you don't know him, you need to get to know him.
Okay.
Our very own executive pastor, Stacey Hayes. Can we have a hand clap for our executive pastor, Stacey Hayes?
All right. Yes. Yes.
How are you, Pastor Stacey?
I am doing well. Trying to figure out what my lighting is doing here, but the Lord is good.
You good? We can see you.
And your wife is signed on. Hello, Elder Jackie. Thank you for watching. So as we move forward in the show, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, comments, or any experiences that you'd like to share that pertains to our topic, feel free to put that information in the chat, and we will get your questions to the guests. And when I have my head down, it's not because I'm disinterested, it's because I am working the board. So when you see things such as what Elder Jackie said, hey, ladies, that means because I have pressed the button to make it go up there. So I have to do different things in order to keep that flow and put questions in the chat and all of that. So I'm playing double duty, but I don't want you to think that I'm disinterested in what's going on. So Pastor White has joined us, so I'm going to bring him up on the stage right now. How are you, Pastor White?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Hey, Pastor White.
Thank you
How
for
you
joining.
doing?
I
We're
think
doing
there's
good.
a bit of a delay.
What's up, Rev?
Listen, I'm good. You here? Good. I'm good.
Dude, I was thinking the exact same thing. That you're here. How you
All right,
feeling?
so let's get started with the conversation. So, Pastor Stacey, why don't you start? Share a little bit of background information about you, your pastoring, your church, if you care to share, and how long you've been pastoring and all that good stuff.
My name is Pastor Stacey Hayes. I'm the executive pastor of Fresh Word Kingdom Assemblies. I have been served as the executive pastor now for 22 years. I have been in ministry probably close to 28 years now. And just I love God. I'm a husband, a father. My wife and I have been married this weekend, 27 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations, that's an
So,
Yes, Lord.
accomplishment.
Yes, Lord.
yeah,
Congrats.
that's something I'm really, really happy about. Really happy about. And I know she's watching, and I say this all the time. It's 8 billion people on earth. She's my favorite one.
And that is wonderful.
That's beautiful.
All right, Pastor Kenny, how about you? Share a little bit of your background in pastoring.
Uh, I am the assistant pastor at Divine Destiny Worship Center. Um, I am married to one wife. Um, my wife is watching. I believe she's watching. Um, she was cooking a minute ago, so I believe she jumped on.
Yes.
I'm the father of 3 children, and I'm like Pastor Stacey. I'm like I it's me and God, man. It's me and God.
All right.
All right.
So let's talk about first a little bit of background about the church. And now let me just say this. You know how we have a tendency to say the black church. So we just want to make something clear. The church isn't black. The church is of all ethnicities
Right.
and everyone, but we tend to be a segregated society, right? So
Yes.
that's the only reason, because in our humanity, things have gone that way. But we do understand that the church is not black and the church is not white, it's not a segregated church. God created everyone equal, and it is his church. So we
Right.
want to get that clear right there. So let's, no, not me, you all, as far as the pastors on the show, talk about the progression of the church as far back as you would know it, from then to present, as far as the church's role, and then also to maybe the black men's role in the church, and maybe how you've seen that progress, if it's progressed. Pastor Stacey, won't you?
Um, I think there's been some progression, and there's been some digressing. I think going back to as far as
Pastor Stacey,
yes, ma'am.
can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
I'm hearing some feedback. I'm not sure if it's you. Do you have your phone on or anything device on, or if anybody, if we can all check our devices, because
No,
I'm
ma'am.
hearing feedback.
Let, I'm, let me check. I'm gonna see if it's the other
Okay,
room.
I'll take you
Okay.
down, and then when I see you come
Okay.
back, come back up. All right, so I'm going to turn mine off as well. And all right, Pastor Stacey, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but
Okay. No
gotta do
problem.
what we gotta do.
Is that better?
Continue. Yes, it's better actually.
Okay. I don't want to be too long in my answer, but I think the role in terms of our voice as leaders in the community. I think largely, if you go back, even civil rights movement on through there, the black church, quote unquote, was a voice of leadership and direction for the community. And I think somewhere, into late 80s and 90s, I think hip hop culture has taken the forefront as it relates to our community and being the voice of our community. And I think in some ways that has had somewhat of a negative impact. But I think I wouldn't even say it in terms of a progression or a digression. I think it's just an evolve and a change. I think the way we do things has changed. The way we attend church, what we expect from church has changed. So I think all of those things play a part in our overall long-term impact.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Pastor Kenny, how about you? You have anything to share with that question?
Yeah. So, um, the church I remember, like back in the day, um, I would definitely say that it has progressed um, at this point. But in remembrance, what I can remember, um, it was different to today. It was more for me, just what the leader said. Um, it went, and it was just a following from that voice, um, to where today it's more of a learning on your individual learning more so than just taking what the leader or the leader, you would say, would say over the pulpit. Now it's more so, people are studying, people are progressing in their learning and things like that. So it's definitely different, because you figure, back in those days it was more so the male voice, to where now you're seeing God moving, um, and allowing, the woman, to step into a larger role. Bishop, is prime example. Her voice is heard, to where, back in the day, it was difficult for, the woman to be heard. So I would agree with my big brother. It has evolved.
Okay.
And Sharon, can I just say one other thing as
Sure,
well?
absolutely.
Thought about it after I spoke. When you first came on, you prefaced the whole thing of there not being a black church or a white church. Um, I, I do agree with that statement, but at the same time, I recognize that God does not ignore culture, and I think we do ourselves a disservice when we do. There was, if you read the New Testament, there was a reason why there was a letter to the church at Corinth and the church in Rome and the Hebrew church, the Hebrew converts, because their experiences were
Yeah,
different. And Paul was able to address those people based on their cultural differences, their background. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we I think, of course, the cross of Christ trumps everything, but I think we do ourselves a disservice when we look at the light of the gospel and we ignore culture.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. And even other aspects of life, when we
Absolutely.
ignore, culture, it doesn't, bode well for us. And, we're so busy trying to be divided. When we bring the cultures together, we can expand our own knowledge and our productivity and everything great about life if we were to, say,
Learn
take
and grow.
advantage and exactly in a good way
absolutely.
of what others bring to the table,
Yeah.
right? Because we all have our
Together.
strengths
Yeah.
and challenges. Absolutely, absolutely, Pastor Kenny. So, gentlemen, let's talk about the black man's role in the church. How you, being black men, have seen it go from what you saw as a younger person, and even say what you may even know historically, to what you see now, and especially in your leadership role, in your senior leadership roles as pastors? Pastor Stacey?
Well, I'll start personally. This is a very passionate subject for me. I am a product of men in church. Early on in my childhood, my biological father was not present, and men at church took on that role. I learned what responsibility was. I learned how a man should treat his wife, how a man should take care of his family. I learned those things from men at church. And I wouldn't say that there was any one man that had it all, but there was enough of them that was present that I could look at one and little things from how to treat your family as to how to carry yourself, how to dress, how to represent yourself, how to speak a certain way. All those things I learned at church. I learned, and God blessed me. We had a strong group of men that were business minded. They were industrious. They were givers. They gave of their time. They gave of their resources. And these were not individuals who were necessarily highly educated with doctorate degrees and things like that. They were just hardworking men who had strong ethics, and that is the foundation on which I stand. So I am an advocate for it, and I'm a product of it. And you can rattle off statistics, and you can talk about what you believe, what you think you've seen. I'm talking about what I've seen firsthand my entire life. I've watched men give their time, their resources, pour into their communities from their hearts, and give and build. And there's no way I would be who I am today without men at church.
Yeah, that's awesome. Pastor Kenny, you have a comment about that question?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, it was a little different for me. I agree wholeheartedly with my brother, Pastor Stacey. My father was, again, like I said last week, he was the dude. Um, he groomed me um, into the man I am today. But there was quite a few more, quite a few more. I was named after um, a former bishop of mine who was very, very good friends with my father. And I say that because anytime you saw a bishop, you saw dad. Anytime you saw dad, you saw a bishop. And when you saw them either with a hammer and a nail in their hand, or you saw them with a broom. Anything the church needed, they were there. And following that, uh, we were able, to see, or at least I was able to see, the importance of being in church, the importance of how to incorporate that in my life as a young man, and be able to apply it as a young man as well. But to be able to come into the church and them to see me in a way like Bishop, uh, I was his son. Because there would be instances to where I would come in, and he would sometimes notice, that something was on my mind, something was on my heart, and was able to pull me aside, and kind of give me knowledge, give me wisdom. It is very important, very important. This is why I teach my son, that I'm not the only one, that can correct you. I'm not the only one that can speak to you. When we're in the church, I leaned on others. So therefore you can lean on others. So it's very important, very important.
All right. Thank you both for that answer. What I'm going to do right now, before we continue with the questions, as you guys have been seeing, I've been trying to get Sandra Lee back on the panel with us. But there's some difficulty. So I want to try and bring her on and see what happens. Sandra, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm hearing a lot of feedback. Are others hearing that?
Yeah.
Everything is uh well, I may have to tell Netta to cut her phone all the way off. But if you take me down, it'll be fine.
Okay, I'm going to remove you right now. Sorry
Oh,
about that. All right, gentlemen. So, regarding the regarding black men in the church and black men's role in the church, in leadership, non-leadership, a congregant. It appears, I don't know what the actual reality is, and we're talking about specifically, say, black churches. There seems to be more women than men. That may be historical, and you guys can speak to that. And is there, was there more black men in the church before and less now? Is it less now, more, more now, less before? What's your take on it, and why do you think it seems like, if it is in fact, black men are, and as Pastor Stacey, you spoke some to this, are not, I guess, wanting to join the church community, and we also too know, it's about salvation and lordship and whatnot. So, is that the only issue? Or the other factors, and some again that Pastor Stacey already spoke to, but what do we think are some of like the main inhibitors of black men wanting to join the church? And is that really a thing? Pastor Stacey, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. It's a combination of things, but I think you got to go back to the beginning. Adam sinned, and his response to God was, "I heard your voice and I hid myself."
Mm.
And I think the Word of God promotes and produces vulnerability, and many times men don't want to be vulnerable. Worship is vulnerable. All of those things produce a level of vulnerability that we have a tendency to hide from. And I think, once men get in and they're part of a ministry that if they're blessed to be a part of an ministry, they don't feel judged, they don't feel condemned, and they feel supported. They're made better for it, but it's very difficult to get them over that hump. Sometimes because worship is a vulnerable thing, and when you come, we're in a society where we're judged by what we do, how we present ourselves, our externals. Those things that we evaluated from little boys. Oh, look, mom, I got an A on my test. Look, I scored a basket. I scored a touchdown. We're evaluated by what we do on the outside. But when you come to God, you got to come heart first. And we're not accustomed to doing that. Women are taught at an early age to share what they feel, to talk about what's going on the inside. And many men, particularly in our community, we don't know how to do that. And when that's thrusted upon us in a church setting, it can be jarring and even frightening at times, And then there's a lot of the propaganda that's out there that's against the church, and you hear it whether the social media and television, and I don't want to go too much into it, but I mean the fact of the matter is, every year on a national level, you're going to get 10 scandals. You're going to get 10.
Yeah.
Jesus had 12 disciples. One of them had issues. Uh, God had a legion of angels in heaven, and a third of them, in Jesus' day, there were counterfeits. There were, these things aren't going anywhere. But I think the other side of that is, with those 10, 12 national scandals that we hear over the airways, there are hundreds and even thousands of leaders that are serving every day, that are giving their lives, giving their resources, giving their time, that will never be on the 6 o'clock news. And because
Yeah.
our community get that lopsided message all the time, that's all they hear. So it kind of repels people. But again, I'm not telling this from the outside looking in the window of the church. I'm saying I'm looking from the inside out, where I'm talking about what I saw. I saw my pastor mop floors and feed hungry people and visit people in jail, and set up programs for people that battle addiction. I saw these things firsthand. So, but those kind of people, unfortunately, they don't make the 6 o'clock news. They don't make headlines on social media. The scandals and all of these other things, and those are the negatives.
Mhm.
what are put out there. So people, they eat what they're served, and I think between that and the vulnerable nature of worship itself, I think it creates, it has created a platform for the enemy to keep men away. But I think those of us that are a part of the church, it puts the responsibility on our shoulders, to represent, to make sure that when men come into our congregations, they're welcome, they're loved, they're supported, they're received. And you have to. I mean, it's the old adage that you have to be the change you want to see. And so I think that's, like I said, there's many other reasons why, but it's the work of the enemy to keep men out of the presence of God, and that hasn't changed. The methods may have changed, but the mission statement to kill, steal, and destroy has not changed. And these are some of the tools of the enemy that I think, unfortunately, he's been quite successful in some areas in keeping men out for those reasons.
And Pastor Stacey, the vulnerability aspect that you spoke about, and even in the garden, that's so powerful. And I don't think that we really think about it in that way, because that makes total sense. And how women are raised, girls are raised versus how boys are raised to be more vulnerable with their emotions, and worship is a vulnerable experience. And then also too, you're talking about in front of a big group of people in a church congregation.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable, one thing is being alone, but then being in front of a group of people, depending on how large your church is, that may put puts men in a vulnerable state.
And
um,
then I'm sorry, I was just going to add to
no,
that.
go ahead.
With that shame, or that proclivity to hide, there's also, the proclivity to deflect. Adam said it was the woman you gave me. In other words, you're just as responsible of this as I am. And so there's always the desire to discredit the messenger. That's why preachers will always be under attack. Nothing nothing causes America to salivate more than watching a preacher fall, because the mindset, if I can disqualify the messenger, I can disqualify the responsibility of the message. So there's
Right.
always that level of scrutiny. So as long as the light is shined on the person who's out front, it doesn't shine back on me. I don't need to change. I don't need to work on myself, because after all, if the preacher can't live right, what do you expect from me? So there's always that deflective, and it's not new. It started in the garden. Adam did the exact thing. This was this woman you gave me. I was fine here. So
Right.
it hasn't changed.
Yeah. One other thing that I know that you have spoken about, I don't know, may have been openly over the pulpit, or we've had a conversation that about sports, specifically football, being on Sundays, when typically that's the day of worship for the church, right? Is that by design? You know, what are your thoughts on that? And then after this, Pastor Kenny, I'll get to you.
Pastor Kenny's a football man, so I can't wait to hear his answer on this one. But I already know. But that is, it's by design to a degree. But I'm a football fan, but I think sometimes our local.
Oops.
If you're 40 years loyal to your football team and you're in your third wife, I think your value system is messed up.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Okay. I hear you. I hear you.
You know, Eagles, Cowboys, like, that's not.
Oh, Pastor Kenny, how would you like to respond to the question about Black men in the church, and reasons for their lack of presence, and what some of the hindrances?
My brother has nailed it. I don't have much, but Pastor Stacey literally nailed it. When we realize the importance of why to be in the church, um, we have to realize that we're not there for show. We're there to serve God and to become better as a man, to become better as fathers, to just, all around to become better. The notion, is because uh my overseer or my pastor was, is a woman, it's difficult to join for a male to join the church because she's a male. I mean, she's a female. So the conversation, becomes a little rocky because you don't want to join the church because my pastor is a female. How can I? And these are some of the questions that I used to get. You know, how can I sit under, a female pastor and flourish? What can I gain from a female pastor? Well, there's a few things you can gain. Um, Again, we're there to better ourselves as men, to better ourselves as fathers. So if you're there with the notion that you won't get better because you're sitting under a female pastor, you've already stepped in the church with the notion that's not going to get you to the place you need to be, because you already have the mindset that because this church is run by a woman, I won't be able to flourish. Well, you've already stepped in the gate wrong. So, a lot of times, what I try to do is kind of steer the mind off of the leader and into a realm to where how can I help in my role as a pastor, help you get to where you need to be as a man. Pastor Stacy mentioned um, the notion, that a lot of scrutiny has come against our leaders. When people see this, they take it and run with it as if that's not the truth. I can pretty much guarantee you that there are some leaders that are living clean. There are some leaders that can help get in term that how men perceive their minds to say, well, because this woman leads the church, I can't grow. Well, you don't know that because you're not in the church yet. You may have been at a church, but you're not in this church yet. And
Right.
to know that you can't, to already know that you won't succeed is not the first thought that you should be having. So I try to do as much as I can as the a pastor, one of the assistant pastor in the church, to help, kind of bring things, to a medium to say, okay, well, yes, my senior pastor is a woman.
Hmm.
I'm here. We have other brothers here that have flourished. Look at our lives.
Right.
All my life, I've been under woman leadership. All my life, I've been under woman leadership. And today, I'm under woman leadership. And it's just different for me. is different for me.
That's an excellent point too that you bring up, Pastor Kenny, with women being in leadership in the church, and how some men may view that, and how the Bible is actually twisted when people talk about, because it says it in the Bible, that's how we're supposed to run our churches today, and which is not true. And and we know that Jesus used women in a mighty way when he walked the earth, and the assignments that we have. And to the other point that you brought up, which is so key, and it's not in the church, when we limit our mindset before we even go into a situation, saying, oh, I'm not going to learn anything this training, I'm just going because my boss is making me go. Or, I'm not going to get anything from
Yeah.
this church as a female leader. We're already setting ourselves up for failure before we even go in, because we're going in with a closed mind. We
Absolutely.
can learn something from the youngest person, right? Because God uses anyone he chooses to get something over to us. And so that key thing that you said, let's stop
Absolutely.
limiting ourselves before we step into a situation, because we're judging it, we're prejudging it. And
Mhm.
now we can't even get the benefit from it, because we could walk away with some greater knowledge, greater wisdom, it's maybe some networking, some opportunities. But because of I limit myself, so now I'm not going to go. Shame on me that I didn't allow myself an opportunity to grow in even subtle ways. So that was a great point, Pastor Kenny. Sandra Lee, let's hear how you're sounding now.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, I'm in and out roundabout. I'm struggling. I finally went from my phone to my computer. I'm about ready to just send up smoke signals here, but I am here. I'm
It's
listening on my
working.
phone. Can you hear me now?
I
Yeah.
can. It's beautiful.
To God be the glory. I mean, I've been pulling out and just pulling it. I had the phone
Yes,
like
ma'am.
this. Like,
Yes,
what are
ma'am.
they saying? But nonetheless, here's what I want to know. What are the challenges for being a Black man in church? Like, what would you say like the main challenge is?
Um,
Good question.
um, Pastor Kenny, you want to take that? Or
Whoever at this point.
there are a number of challenges. I think the
Well,
one. Oh, go ahead, Pastor.
no. Go. You finish.
Okay. There's a number of challenges. I think a lot of it is just some of the rhetoric that's out there. Um, the I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but the whole it being a white man's religion and all these types of
Okay.
things, and I think that becomes a challenge for a number of reasons. Because we all know there was a level and still is a level of manipulation where the Bible was used against us as a people in many settings. Um,
Right.
and the only and I had someone say to me one time that the only reason why there's black men that are Christians today is because of white slave owners. And my response to them was, if that's the case, what do you do with the 600 million Christians that are still on the continent of Africa today? It's never been a slave ship, never. I said, so you got to explain each one of them away. I said, there's
Right. Right.
600 million Christians on the continent of Africa
Wow.
that's never been on a slave ship, never been in Massa's plant station or any of that, and are believing and are thriving in their faith. So there's just a whole lot of things that we've been sold. Uh,
Right.
we've been sold, and sometimes ignorance, creates barriers,
Mhm.
and everything. And I want to also add this: everything that's flawed is not fraudulent.
Okay.
Good.
People are flawed. I am flawed.
Right.
We all are flawed. But that doesn't make someone necessarily a fraud because they are flawed.
All right. Sounds like a
There-
message.
there's a difference between the two, and I think and I think Pastor Kenny talked about it, and he mentioned it in light of women in leadership. But I think that many cases, black men come to church with a high level of skepticism. You
Okay.
know, are they trying to get over me? Are they trying to take advantage of me? Are they trying to get something from me? And I think they
Right.
walk in the door many times with a lot of those ideas, and it's a very defensive posture. And I could go down a laundry list as to things that feed that. Sometimes, women in church create that narrative. You can't go home to your husband talking about my pastor said, and you need to be more like my pastor. That makes your husband stay home. That is what that's
right.
Because if he feels like you're not listening to him and you're going to church listening to somebody else coming back correcting him, that is, and then a lot of it is just the way we're hardwired to some degree. And that level of skepticism, and I'm saying this in a comical way, but there's a level of seriousness to it. Women will come to church, they'll have disagreement, they'll bump heads from time to time, and they'll have their issues with one another. But next Sunday they're going to be there. Men get offended, they're gone. They're gone. True. And I said to a dear friend of mine, who I could talk to like this, I said, man, you one of the toughest guys I know. I said, for some reason, when you go to work, you Teflon, but when you go to church, you're silk. I understand how you come to church and become a punk all of a sudden. Why everything offends you, your feelings are on your shoulder. I said, when you went to the club, nobody could say anything to make you stay home. When you will go to work and your boss says something out the way, it doesn't make you stay home. But there's a level of hypersensitivity that happens to men when they come to church. And it's because of that skepticism that they wear when they walk in the door. It's like, there it is. They offended me. I'm going on. And it's like, and I told him, I said, man, you come to church and became a punk. You're not even a guy I know. And he was like, wow, I never really thought of it that way. I said, one, people are people. And I think, and I'm going to end this with this. I think there has to be a level of commitment to inner growth.
Right.
You have to personally be committed to that, because if you walk in the door with what can you do for me attitude, that's like Pastor Kenny said, your mindset is not in a place that is conducive for growth and development. But to have a man to come in and say, I need to grow, I need to work on me. And I think when it's introspective, you come ready to do the inside work. And I think as long as there is that high levels of skepticism, I think that's one of the biggest obstacles we face. And that's why, and Pastor Kenny has been, with us in many of our men's sessions. I hit it hard. I'm like, look, let's, something's wrong. Come to me, man. Look, I don't like the way you said this. I don't like to. Let's get it on the table. Let's fix it. Let's be men, because our presence is needed. Our presence is necessary. We got young boys here with no fathers. We need to be seen. We need to be present. We need to be accounted for. So whatever it is, let's have a level of tenacity for them, if no one else. Not just what's in it for me, but what does your presence mean to that 3-year-old little boy down the pew from you?
Right.
Right. I think, and I think when we come in with more of an attitude of what we have to offer or to contribute, I think that'll definitely or hopefully provide some stick-to-itiveness to make us, not be so quick to run for the door.
Okay. Ooh, that was so good. So many sermons right there. So many sermons.
So many.
So good. Pastor Kenny, let me hear from you.
There's a delay on Pastor Kenny's end.
It seems like it's a delay.
Okay. Pastor Kenny, did you hear?
Well, when Pastor Stacey mentioned,
There's a little delay on that.
Am I delayed?
Yes.
Yep.
Be patient with us, audience. It's been a rough day.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
We can hear you. All right, Pastor Kenny, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just lower you and maybe I'll bring you back up and we'll see what
Can you?
happens.
Okay.
All right. Let's answer this question. There's a couple of questions. I'm going to go with this one first, and this one is actually from your wife, Pastor. Elder Hayes says, historically, men are not comfortable with counseling or therapy. So, how do you think that mindset has impacted men in the church if they have been hurt by the church or people in the church and choose to walk away and not deal with it head on?
Oh, good
Great
question.
question.
Yes.
Excellent
Ooh.
question. There's two things that I can say to that. Ironically, my wife and I, we have boy and girl twins. And if you ever want to do a case study in the difference between male and female, you have boy and girl twins. It's a great case study, And I remember, when my kids used to play soccer, and my daughter would fall, and I would, she'd look for me in the audience and start crying, and I'd run out there, grab her, oh my baby, And then the next game the boys are playing, and my son would get hurt. And I'm looking at him going, don't cry, don't cry. Because if they see you cry,
Right.
We learn that as children, that vulnerability is bad. We've been programmed to think that way. And it's something that we have to work through as men, because therapy, counseling, those are all, again, back to that word vulnerability. There's a level of vulnerability, and we've been so programmed to shelf our feelings, take the hits, makes you more of a man to not feel. So not just in church, that comes down to therapy, counseling, education, it pretty much every walk of life. It affects us as fathers from time to time. So we have to work through that, and that's a lot of work. In terms of people being hurt at church, my wife has heard me say this before. There's a phrase that people like to use a lot, and they say church hurt, and I've always said to that, and I asked somebody, I said, if you go to ShopRite and the cashier at ShopRite is rude to you, but the person in the deli was nice, the person in the bakery is nice, do you leave there saying you experienced ShopRite hurt? Or do you I mean, and so, my thing is, like, everyone at church didn't hurt you. A person at church bothered you. I said, so
That is so good.
I think it's demonically inspired to just use that umbrella statement, church hurt.
Yes.
If you work at UPS and you have a supervisor that get on your nerves, is that UPS hurt, or did you just have a supervisor? But the church is the only place that we umbrella the whole place and say that place, because now that place becomes a place of hurt. And everyone in church, there may be people there that genuinely love you that you'll never get a chance to experience their love because you have church hurt. So that means everyone under that roof is hurt for you. Instead of saying, Sister Johnson hurt me, so I need to stay away from Sister Johnson. It's the only place that we do that. It's the only place. We don't go to work. We don't come home crying saying we had AT&T hurt, or Johnson Elementary School hurt. No, the secretary got
right.
And I dealt with her. I dealt with him, and we can deal with people as individuals everywhere else. But if one says something to you off, now the whole church is hurtful, and I think that's a demonic ploy to disqualify people from the help that they really need. So I'm not saying that people don't get hurt at church, but I think it's wrongful to label it church hurt, because I doubt very strongly if everyone at the church hurt you. There may be a person, there may be a group of people, but that's no different from any place else. Like I said, the lady at the bakery could be sweet, the lady in the deli could be nice, and the cashier is rude. You don't say, I'm never going back to ShopRite again. I have ShopRite hurt. No, you don't. You go to another register the next time, And so I think these are just things that we create, and we embellish and make them bigger. And again, I think at the heart of it, I think it's demonically inspired to disqualify the whole.
I think you're right. I think right. Pastor Stacey, is so funny that you said that because it seems like, I guess people think when they go to church, they should always be happy. It should always be a wonderful experience because it is church, a building where God is, and so anything that happens in the building where God is, if it's not positive, then there you go. Oh, the church hurt me. But I'm so glad you broke that down because that is hilarious, number one. And it's just so true, number two. But I think we do use that as an excuse, as a reason why not to go to church, because somebody in the church hurt you, right?
If you go in the backyard and put 5 ants in a cup, 2 of them going to be fighting you if you leave them there long enough.
That's right.
Anytime there's a gathering of people, there are going to be differences of opinion,
right?
Differences. But again, I think even under that whole umbrella of church hurt, I think if I come in expecting to be offended, I look for offense in places where the intention may not even be to offend me, but I'm coming in hypersensitive, looking for something wrong. I have my feelings on my shoulders. I'm hypersensitive to everything and everyone because it confirms my flesh wanting to retreat from help.
Right.
And it's like that the presence of God is like that mirror at the makeup counter when you flip it and it shows you every little crevice in your face. And we don't want to look. We flip that mirror quick. So we look for anything that will help us to flip that mirror and say, I don't need that because of those people. Because at the end of the day, at the heart of the matter, as long as I can find something wrong, I get to not do the work on me.
Right.
And that's what this is all about. That's what all of the avoidance is for, because I can fight people, I can avoid people, but the last person I want to deal with is me. And you can pack your bags and move to California tomorrow and never see me again. But guess who's going to be there when you get there? You.
You are. Exactly.
And that's the battle we all want to avoid to some degree in our flesh. And I think, but like I said before, when you are committed to internal development, that's when you come in saying, listen, ma'am, sir, preach to me. I need help. I don't care who's sitting next to me. I don't care what they have to say. I don't care if they don't like me. I don't care. I need this word because I'm committed to this development. And when God starts to work on me, God starts to change me and develop me, then I begin to spread that to others and I begin to help other people in their development. But I think we initially, at the heart of the matter, all of these isms and schisms and black church and men at church, at the end of the day, it all comes down to a fear of personal commitment to development.
Okay. Oh, that was good. Okay.
So true, Pastor Stacey. It is so true. And as Elder Jackie's question was, is why people don't go to therapy too, because I know I'm going to have to make a of inner inner growth. And who are the most people who stay away from therapy are men, and not just talking about black men. More women go to therapy, and then a lot of times when you see the couple going is and I'm generalizing here, I'm a therapist and this is what I see, the wife is dragging them to come along with them, right? So and again, therapy is vulnerable. Worship at church is vulnerable. And I think we people who raise children, right, women and men, do our boys a disservice by stomping on their emotions when they're young and saying, suck it up, get over it, some form of that. And maybe even some sort of punishment if a boy cries. So they're told, they're taught, they're raised to deny their emotions. So then why do we expect when they become a husband and the wife is like, you don't show any emotion, I want you to be sensitive? It was like, well, what do you all want? You told me not to when I was growing up, and now you're asking me to. I'm confused.
And the sad part about it is a lot of times it's not done in such a way as parents that I don't want my son to be to have that level of awareness, and not that I don't want to have it, but a lot of times, as men, we understand the cost of it, and everyone does not merit your vulnerability, and there's a lot of dangers in being vulnerable to the wrong people. So sometimes, as a young man, I grew up in the city of Newark. I know if you go to school at 9 years old crying all the time, what's going to happen to you, And so, you try your best to build your sons in a way that they're safe, because you can't be vulnerable with everyone, but you need to be vulnerable with someone. And I think, that's where fathers and men in the church, like I said, I learned, you know, watching men that love God, that cried in the presence of God, that were still men, and Pastor Kenny, I hope he can get back on, but, I've been at Fresh Word Kingdom Assemblies under Bishop Freeman for 25 years now. It has not softened me at all.
Right.
Made me any less of anything.
Right.
Again, I think, if you want a reason to stay home, you'll find one.
It's true.
True.
If you want one bad enough, you'll find one. And so, I think, it's tough, but I think, that type of vulnerability, it's not something that you can teach. It has to be displayed. It happens when I see real men do it and still come out real men.
Right.
See it and I see it, and I was blessed to see it. I was blessed to be around men who gave God their everything. Gave God their everything. I mean, to almost to the point of their literal lives. And I saw it. And these men, they weren't soft. Their manhood wasn't diminished in any way. In fact, they were stronger. And so to that's what our presence means.
Yeah.
And I hope to God at Fresh Word, some young man, some boy has seen how I treat my wife or how I handle my children, how I worship God, and it's inspired them to open up their hearts to God and let God heal them, and to be a testimony of the fact that little broken boys that don't have daddies get healed. They do come out. They do come out better. So I mean, every one of our lives has a different story, a different testimony, but we got to be there to be it.
Right.
Not so much in what we say, it's in what we display. It's walking it out week after week. Even the consistency of our attendance speaks to our strength. Rain or shine, I'm there. If I can be there, I'm there.
Right.
I don't have to teach my kids church attendance. They saw it. They see it, and now they're committed. They attend on their own because of what we was not perfect, but we did what we could. So I think it's so important that they see it. I know I said a lot. I'm sorry for going.
That's
on.
That's
right.
okay. No problem. I brought Pastor Kenny back up, but we're going to forego the question. Sorry, Sandra and Pastor Kenny, that you asked Pastor Kenny originally that Pastor Stacey answered. Because one, it's 9:02, and we have some questions in the chat. All right. So Adrian asks, my question is, how do we address toxic masculinity in the men in our families and in our churches when some have been shaped by the negative lyrics of rap culture? Ooh, that's a whole show. Let's see, Pastor Kenny, can you hear me? I think we're still having challenges. So, Pastor Stacey, why don't you take that question?
Pastor Kenny, are you there? I thought I heard him.
Yeah, I think I did too.
I can. The question is, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you now. Did you see the question on the screen about toxic masculinity, how to address that in men in the families and in our churches, and when some have been shaped by this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think I think there's a problem. I'm not tech savvy. It doesn't sound like it's working on my end. Pastor Kenny, I'm going to lower you, and Pastor Stacey, can you answer that question?
Really want to hear my brother's answer on that.
I'll put it back on the screen.
I want to say this, and this is not a knock against my sister at all in her question. I think one of the problems is women diagnosing the health of our masculinity. I can't tell you what toxic femininity is because I'm not a woman. And I think every time I hear the term toxic masculinity, it comes usually out of the mouth of a woman. And I think that in and of itself becomes a turnoff, because I think you can't diagnose my masculinity if you don't understand it. There's some things about women I will never understand. That I could look and say, okay, there may be some issues with her femininity that she needs to work on, but I can't help you with that. And I think a lot of times our women are trying to treat our flawed masculinity, and I think that's a job that men need to do. And I think that phrase turns men off. And I understand what it means clearly. I understand what it is, but from what I believe it means, I think the only way to offset that is to um, be the difference. I think rap music has shed some negative lights on how men talk to women and address women and things like that, and that's not even the case with all rap music. But I will say that um, there's a whole lot of things that I could say to that, but a lot of that stems to beyond just the church, just fathers not being in the homes. And I think that's when fathers are not in the homes, rappers become the voice. Um, Rap music, and I came up in the era in the early years of hip hop culture, and they were the people who sounded like us. The other people on television didn't talk our talk. They didn't understand our language. And when rap music really took off, 70s, 80s, there were people that sounded like me, people that looked like me, and they became our voice. And the truth of the matter is, they became our voice because our fathers weren't.
Yeah.
So we have to offset a lot of that, and it's not going to happen overnight. And I think a lot of times we want to change the masses, and that can be exhausting. Sometimes you have to work one child at a time, and
Right.
just touch one young man. And if I pick up my son and two of his friends are in the car, and they hear how I talk to my wife, those things can be so impactful. A lot of our children's friends would joke with us, and they say, "Man, your parents never argue." That's not true, but but again, it I think you have to take the moments to be intentional.
Right.
To be intentional and to be the difference. And I'm so grateful again, and I keep going back to it, is those little moments, the ride home from church, the ride from the skating ring with a friend's dad or one of the men from the church, just seeing men in their element be men is so impactful. And it's amazing how one ride from the skating ring that took 40 minutes could probably do more than 2 hours of my mother talking at me about what I should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Just seeing
Yeah.
it. I think, and that's the case with men and boys. It's the same thing with women and girls. I think when you see something modeled before you, you get it. And at the very least, that different exists.
Right.
So many boys don't know that different even exists.
Right. That's so good.
And just whether you choose to follow it or whatever,
Mhm.
and I say it all the time, and my wife has heard me say it, when you take the opportunity to be different, you won't be invited to everything, you won't be popular, but there's going to
Right.
come a time when they're going to need something different, and there you are.
Right.
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 And that's really, I mean, I wish I could give an answer that just fixes the whole problem, but I think it's hard. It's hard because so many of our Black women are raising our boys on their own, and they're trying to do the work, and it's very difficult to create something that they haven't seen in other men.
And
Okay.
that leads right into this question, which is one of the last questions that we have in the chat. It says, my question is, this is from Juanita, how can I, as a Black mother, instill Christ in my son under today's peer pressure?
Find one good brother. Find one good brother and see if he's willing to take the time. And it might not be hanging out with him every weekend or whatever, but man, I just I'm I wasn't like under like full blown mentorship. Like, let me take you under my wing. Just little pockets of time here and there that meant so much. And I think, and sometimes, like I said earlier on, you won't get it all in one person. Sometimes the financial hack is one guy, but then the father is another, and all these other things. You might see a guy, you
Excuse
just
me.
like his style, you like the way he dressed, the way he carries himself, and you gotta, it's hard, but sometimes you have to just make sure if you can find a godly man who's willing to take some time, to just say, hey, let's go get some lunch, whatever. Those little impactful moments go a long way. And I think young men need to know that other men care.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
some of these times, just the busyness of the grind. We get so caught in our own household trying to keep things rolling, trying to do. If you get one man at your church that loves God, that's just willing to take the time, and ideally, an older man who could help guide, but if you could find other godly young men his age to connect into, I think
Yeah.
those peer to peer, and then somebody that you can look up to. You can get those people. You don't even need 10 of them. If you can get one of each,
Yeah.
it goes a long way. Then as a mother, don't stop praying. Don't stop loving. Don't stop supporting. And as they get older, it's going to be a lot more listening and a lot less. And I'm going to use the word barking at them, because a lot of times, you can mean well, but if your posture is viewed as a nagging type thing, it can repel. Because we don't. It's very easy for us to just stand there and nod and be in our shell and not absorb anything you're saying.
Right.
We can turn you to mute like a television. And
So true.
and so important,
Oh my
mother,
God.
to be able to know I'm not being heard right now. Now I turn off my voice in your face, but I turn on my voice in prayer, and knowing when to do that. I think is key. And sometimes, and the last thing I will say to that: exposure, exposure, exposure. It may mean taking a weekend in DC, going to an expo, going to a Black Financial Expo or something like it. May exposure is so underrated. Sometimes just one moment, Um, and I won't tell my story because it'll take too long. But there was one individual who I was exposed to in my teen years, and man, it blew my mind. Just that one encounter. And sometimes it may mean going out of your way to get them out of the space that they're used to and get them in an environment to see different.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
That is so true, Pastor Stacey. When I was young, my dad would take me in the car, me and my cousin, female cousin, um, and he would drive like an hour away just for us to go to this ice cream stand to get ice cream cones that we love. But I was born and raised in Philly. But he would drive an hour. Okay, it might have been 30 minutes. When I'm young, everything takes a long time. But I know
Yeah.
it wasn't in Philly, right? But he would take us on these long rides, and then I would saw the suburbs of Philly, right? And I would see these mansions, and I would see these, Mercedes Benz and all these cars that I didn't see in Philly. So my mind was expanded. So I always would begin to talk about the mansion that I would live in. And I still talk about it today because I know it's going to happen. But anyway, had I not been exposed to that, I might think that only row homes exist because I lived in a row home in Philly, right? And I know a lot of people who live in urban environments. They stay in the urban environment and live within a 10 block radius, right? And if you have to drive anything further than that, it's like driving to California from Pennsylvania, right?
Right.
Because I'm over the bridge in Jersey now. And so you tell me, well, I'm just, over the bridge, Jersey. you know, and I'm still talking to someone in Philadelphia, New Jersey, and it's really only a 20-minute ride. Well, you can drive 20 minutes within Philadelphia alone, but it
Right.
sounds so a feat for them because they haven't been exposed.
Yeah. We used to do those drives too with our kids. You know, wow, look at that house, look at that, you know, and just seeing people living the dream is just, you know, is so impactful because, you know, you got the people around you, and people on TV. Well, those are the rich, famous people. But
Right.
if you can get them into not necessarily fame or anything like that, but just in the company of someone who's tangible, who's doing it goes so far. So far.
Yes.
Oh wow, this has been wonderful. I'm
Yes.
sorry, Pastor couldn't join us back. He said he'll just stay in the studio and listen to Pastor Stacey. I'm hearing more feedback now. You know, the devil tried to have his way, but we had a show tonight, and I believe that we have gotten a lot of information, knowledge, and wisdom to the audience. And when Nina says, "Wow, thank you, Pastor Stacey, for answering her question," I believe you definitely gave her some things to hold on to for her son. That's awesome. That's what we want to do. That's what we're here for. That we can lend information back and forth, not because we're not just the experts or whatever, but you guys have to share. That's why I'm always asking, what's your experience? What's your questions and comments? Because when we put it all together, we grow, right? So, Sandra Lee, any parting words?
Even with the struggle we got through the show, I hate all the different things that was going on. Could hear some stuff, couldn't hear. But this has just been a wonderful show. It's always wonderful. The nuggets that we're getting is just, I'm telling you, Pastor Stacey, you got about 7 or 8 sermons already within.
You go bring from me, Sandra.
And Pastor Kenny as well. I know he said it was okay, but I know about, you know, how we really wanted him to come back, but we just keep, because right now it's just, you know, Sharon's running the board, and you know, so it's small right now, but we know that it's going to be different. So, you know, we just kind of go through what we go through. I'm sure Oprah didn't start off, you know, as powerful as she is like the first day. It's growing. So we just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. Now, you know, my prayer starts at 9:00 with my family. They know on Wednesdays, you know, I'm normally off a little bit after 9. So I just want to say that this has just been a wonderful time, and maybe we can come back again. Pastor Stacey, Pastor Kenny, we thank Pastor Kenny. He was here last week. So Pastor Stacey, free your calendar up. Listen, free it up.
We must do a part 2 because there's so many questions that we didn't even get to. So, you know, this is a big topic.
We'll work it out. Right.
We'll
I really wanted to hear Pastor Kenny answer that football question because he's I was ready. He was the man of the question, so we have to.
He'll tell you on Sunday.
Yeah. Do that, Pastor Kenny. Tell us all on Sunday. We'll huddle up, the 4 of us. What's the answer?
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
All right, ladies.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Pastor Stacey. What'd you say?
I said thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. You know you're at the top of my list.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching the show and engaging with us and having just sharing, you know, those questions that you share. Excellent questions I think that people have on their minds, but sometimes just don't ask, because a lot of times you get frustrated, like, you know what, I'm not going to get any answers just because I haven't had any answers all this time. But somebody else will ask a question that you're thinking. So thank you all for your questions. Don't be shy. Thank you all who watched the show. That was Overseer White, Pastor Kenny's mom, but I just put up that comment. So let me just run off a few names. Thank you, Juanita, Overseer White, Michael, Juanita again, Adrian, Netta, Jackie, Shakina, Robin, Kathleen, Sharon, Wilhelmina again, Jackie again, Aisha, Sharon, Inga, Honey Bunches, and Gwen. Those are the people who I see their names because they made a comment. If you're watching and you didn't make a comment, then I never see your name. But we appreciate you watching, even if you don't didn't make a comment. So it's quite all right. I just can't mention your name. So before you leave, please do us a great favor by subscribing to the YouTube channel. If that's how you're watching, just click the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. Like us on Facebook. If that's how you're watching, just push the like button and like the video. Share the video so others can hear this information as well. And this helps us to get in front of more people so we can expand the show. And that's how we grow. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We love you guys. Oh, Lamont Caldwell says this was a great show tonight.
Oh, that's my friend Lamont. I work with him. Well, he used to work. He used to work at Unity. I'm sure my Unity family is watching. They're just too shy to say anything.
All right. All right. So thank you for watching tonight, engaging with us, sharing all your questions, comments, your wisdom. Thank you, Pastor Stacey. Thank you, Pastor Kenny, for being our guest tonight. And Sandra Lee, of course, thank you for co-hosting the show with me as you do every week.
Absolutely.
And we will see you next week. I'm not sharing what the topic is going to be, but it's going to be about the Black man, because we're in the Black man experience. So stay tuned. We'll see you next Wednesday live at 8 again. We love you. God bless you.
God bless
you.
Goodbye.
God bless.
God bless you.